You are not going crazy. Someone is deliberately making you feel like you are. And the most terrifying part is that they are doing it without raising their voice, without a single threat, without leaving a single mark anyone else can see. This is not a bad relationship. This is a system, and you have been living inside it without knowing the rules. By the end of this video, you will see every single move that has been made on you, and once you see them, you cannot unsee them. So pay attention, because what I'm about to show you is going to explain the last few months of your life in a way nothing else has. They never raised their voice once. And somehow that silence was the most terrifying thing you ever experienced. You checked your phone 100 times in 1 hour and they did absolutely nothing. That was the whole plan. You apologized again, not because you were wrong, but because apologizing was the only way back to normal. They looked you in the eye and told you it didn't happen the way you remember. And the worst part is you started to believe them. You felt guilty for having a completely normal reaction, which means someone spent a long time teaching you that your feelings are the problem. Every time you tried to talk about what hurt you, the conversation somehow ended with you comforting the person who caused the pain. They never told you that you were failing. They just made sure you never once felt like you were succeeding. 3 days of silence for a 10-minute conversation is not a communication style. It is a punishment, and punishments require someone to believe they have that power over you. The compliment that made you feel worse than an insult was not an accident. It was engineered to land exactly where it landed. Being told you're too sensitive is one of the most effective ways to make someone stop trusting their own instincts. And that is precisely why it gets used. They agreed with the boundary, nodded, said they understood, and crossed it again the next day while looking directly at you. Every day you left the interaction empty and they left full. That is not a relationship dynamic, that is an energy economy with one winner. The moment someone else's emotional stability became your daily job, you stopped being a partner and started being a caretaker who never applied for the position. Every time you tried to leave the conversation, a new emergency appeared. And after enough emergencies, you stopped trying to leave, which was the point. When every single problem traces back to something you did, you are not with someone who is trying to understand. You are with someone who has already decided. The words you shared in your most private moments were never private. They were stored, and you will find out exactly where the next time you disagree. Being compared to people who do it better is not encouragement. It is the slow and deliberate erosion of your confidence by someone who needs you to have less of it. The overwhelming warmth at the beginning was not love, it was the setup. And everything that came after was the mechanism. Labeling your completely normal reaction as crazy is not a misunderstanding. It is a strategy to make your perception of reality the problem instead of their behavior. Everything you shared in your most vulnerable moments was filed away. And you will know this is true the next time an argument starts and something personal becomes a weapon. The moment it all clicks is not a relief. It is disorienting and painful and absolutely impossible to undo, which makes it the most important moment in a very long time. The confusion you have been living in is not because you aren't smart enough. It is because someone has been working very hard to keep you confused. You have been managing someone else's manufactured chaos as a full-time responsibility, and receiving nothing back except the temporary relief of surviving it until the next round. Your apologies never fixed anything, not because you said them wrong, but because fixing things was never what they were being used for. The first time you recognize the move and simply don't react, you will feel the entire room shift because the technique requires your participation and your stillness breaks it completely. Not chasing the end of a silence you didn't create is one of the hardest things you will do, and one of the first things that shows you how the whole thing actually works. Naming what is happening out loud, calmly, clearly, without drama, is the most disarming thing available to you, because these techniques only survive while they remain unnamed. Responding to guilt with a genuine question instead of actual guilt removes the hook from the line, and a hook with nothing on it catches nothing regardless of how skillfully it's cast. Leaving a circular conversation is not avoidance. It is the recognition that some conversations were never trying to reach a resolution and are not worth the energy it takes to keep them moving. You do not owe anyone an explanation for a decision they were never going to respect, and that realization alone will return more energy to you than almost anything else on this list. The color that comes back when you create distance was not taken from you all at once. It was taken in small daily amounts that you had stopped noticing were gone. Not managing someone's emotional state today is not cruelty. It is the restoration of a boundary that should have existed from the very beginning. Following through on a consequence for the first time will feel harder than setting the boundary ever did, and it will also be the first moment they understand the boundary is actually real. Not filling a silence someone else created is one of the most powerful moves available, because silence only works as a weapon against people who cannot survive it, and you can learn to survive it. Saying how something made you feel without softening it to protect the comfort of the person who caused it is not aggression. It is just honesty, finally undiluted. The sleep that comes when you are no longer managing someone else's instability at 3 in the morning will make you realize how long you were running on empty and calling it fine. Laughing without checking if it's allowed is such a small thing, and such a devastating reminder of how long your own joy has been monitored. Making a decision without consulting someone who was never going to support it anyway is not recklessness. It is the first real decision you have made in a very long time. The absence of tension in your body during a normal conversation will feel strange at first, because you have been braced for so long that relaxed started to feel like danger. Spotting the pattern in someone new before it takes hold is not paranoia. It is the hard-won skill of someone who paid full price for a lesson and kept every single part of it. A disagreement where both people actually want to understand each other will feel shockingly unfamiliar, because what you have been calling disagreements were never that. When what happened to you finally has a name, the self-blame that has been sitting in the space where the explanation should have been begins to quietly dissolve. Forgiving yourself for how long it took to see clearly is not optional. You were operating with incomplete information inside a system designed to keep the information incomplete. You were never the problem. You were the person who kept trying to fix something that was specifically designed to keep breaking, and the fact that you kept trying, that says everything about you and absolutely nothing about your worth.